Hey everybody, this is Clue Galters. I have been wanting to put together just a little video, a little tutorial for some of the questions that I have gotten online. Pretty kind of intro to altar stuff, but there's this sort of questions that I think it's just easier to show how to do it than kind of explain it. The first of those is building up color. How to build flat color for things like cartoon altars or comic altars. So what I'm doing right now is just laying down some base coat to begin, and this is basically exactly how I would do it for one of my altars that I auction. It really doesn't need to be, you're not worried about the brush strokes is I guess what I'm trying to say. And it should be transparent, so you can see that you can kind of see the landscape through this, and I'll do some of the text box, and maybe that's easier to see how thin that I'm working. And this is golden fluid acrylic. So the paint is already quite thin. Sometimes I will have a little water added to it just from like rinsing out my brush, but generally I'm not really thinning these paints all that much. And that's something that I wanted to talk to as well, or speak to as well, is it's paramount that you work really thin, because at the end of the day, these are playing cards, and if you want the cards to remain playable, they need to, the paint needs to be negligible, so that they're not marked in a deck. Even in a sleeve, if an altar is substantially thick, it's a marked card. So I try to, and I think I'm successful at, painting cards so thin that they remain sleeve playable and are unmarked. In fact, I just posted the Severance piece that I painted, and I can just show you the thickness of these. So really, there's no significant texture to my altars. There's that. So getting back into it, building color. So this foundation is really important because it means that for your subsequent layers, you're not going to have to work so hard to cover up all of this information underneath. And sometimes I'll lay in just a little bit of a thicker foundation, like so for like something like text, you can kind of start to make that disappear by building up this base coat. And if I didn't already say already, this is just normal white and black acrylic, so I'm not using anything special for base coats. And the nice thing about acrylic is this dries really, really fast, so in a matter of seconds, I'm going to be able to work on top of it. The other thing I wanted to point out is people always ask, how am I mounting the card to the surface? And it's just normal painter's tape in the corner. Blue painter's tape, just a roll of that. And then I'll just stick it back down. And then I have this little just piece of Bristol cardstock to mount it to, so that I can also just wiggle that around and kind of move it out of the way if I need to. Kind of a helpful tip, at least for me. So I'm going to work in, I'll just pick a color, just some blue. So if I were wanting to paint a solid blue area, I would basically start with this base coat, and then I would just start building up the color that I want. So this is just a little bit of blue and white. There's nothing else in the color. But you can see that this colored area is not super vibrant. you can still see the base coat underneath. So this is transparent. It's really difficult to kind of get an opaque area in one go. So you have to plan to kind of build up these areas. But you can see if I lay this down on top of some something without base coat underneath, you can see just how much more transparent it is. Whereas right now the text is already disappearing, so that base coat is doing a lot of work in making this blue area appear opaque. And then I'll try to zoom in here. There's my blue area, and it actually looks like maybe there's like a little hair in there, so just try to rub that out. But anyway, so once this coat is dry, I'm really just going to apply another thin layer. And I know that seems kind of obvious, but this is really all I'm doing. So when people kind of see my videos and see how I'm building up color, and then they're wondering how there's the jump from underpainting to finished product, it's really just more of the same. Like I'm just applying further coats. So you can just see if I just add one more additional coat on here, it's already starting to be pretty opaque. So in total, that's 2 coats of color, 1 coat underneath of a base coat of a gray. And that's so much more effective. So what I'll do is I'll lay another coat over top of this blue that I laid down without base coat, and you can already see the text is still showing through. So let me zoom that out a little bit. So that base coat, that's why base coats are so important. They really help you in terms, because I can even add like a 3rd coat to this, and it's starting to hide that text underneath, but you can still see it. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about today is gradients. So people want to know how I blend one color into another. And basically the way I've kind of explained that in the past is you're just kind of, you're worried about the transition. So let me just kind of illustrate this. So say I just have, an area, and I have color A on this side and color B on this side. And so it's pretty easy to have a solid area here of the colors that you're trying to fade into each other. It's the transition between them that is the tricky part. So really the way you're going to start is you're going to kind of lay in color on both sides. And then as these get closer together, just kind of mix them. So really your gradient, you're focusing on this transition part. Maybe that sounds a bit convoluted, but again, that's why I'm doing a video, so that you can see how that's done. So I'm gonna work with blue again, and I'll just do it on this upper part. So say we want to, for like a sky or something, you want to fade this dark blue into a lighter blue, like towards the horizon. So we'll just take 2 blues, and I'm just mixing some of that up, right? And then, so our 2 colors, color A, color B, and we want to transition between them. So what I tend to do is do this sort of thing, and then I'll start mixing those colors and then add something that's like kind of close to a midtone. And then all you have to do is just kind of start working this color out in the, so let me just draw that really quick. and some black. So you're trying to work this color up, this color down, and then this color in both directions, right? So you're kind of fighting it, or creating the gradient from both sides. So you can just kind of, so that I want that to be a little bit darker, so I add just a little bit more blue, maybe even more. And I'm working fairly quickly. I am trying to feather out the paint so it remains thin, but so in practice, I would probably do this a little slower. All right, so down here, we're kind of working that. And then you can start to kind of paint over the whole thing. Let's see. And you can kind of see, and the nice thing is you're kind of adding subsequent layers, so you're kind of building up the opacity as you kind of develop this sort of thing. And sometimes you'll see me tap the paint. What that's doing is, you can see it adds a little bit of texture with my fingerprints, but it's also pulling off some excess paint. So I can, you can see there's like a little bit of a transparent area here. So you want to start kind of looking for those gaps where the gradient is kind of, I don't know, just they're not continuous. Zoom out. Yeah, so gradients are really helpful for, you know, something like a sky like this. But if you really think about it, you know, this is shading. And here's a perfect time to show. So what happened was I tapped the paint. I had a little bit of dried paint on my fingernail. You can usually pull this. Oh, okay. So we pulled paint off. Not a huge problem, actually. An opportunity to show you how to fix mistakes. So I'm working so quick. The paint underneath wasn't quite dry enough, and I've kind of lifted it off. So how do we fix that? What I'll do is I'll mix up just some kind of like gray primer again. I'll lay it into that spot. Just kind of tapping it down. Yeah, and why do I not just paint blue over this spot? Because there was no paint there anymore at all. So I'm trying to, if you just paint over it, you're adding additional coats to the outside and then a single coat to the inside. And what you end up having is like kind of a pothole in your painting. So you have to kind of go back and build up that minuscule amount of thickness, kind of touch it up. And then once that's mostly dry, we can just paint right over it and fix that area. You can use things like workable fixatives to kind of like help you with getting the paint to stick to the card. Typically, I don't like to use those because they can really hinder the finished product. They change the consistency, especially in kind of weird humidities. You can kind of get like splotching on the surface of your card when you spray them down. So what I recommend is just letting your paint cure for long enough. And generally speaking, it kind of depends on the printing of the card. But generally speaking, the acrylic is pretty resilient on its own. I was just kind of being a little rough with it. So anyway, so fix that pretty easily. And then I'll do a little bit more on the bottom here. I can make this gradient even lighter. Yep, so I think that's pretty much it. Feel free to ask me questions online, and if I can explain them in text form, I'm always happy to. And if there's something that I just kind of want to do like a demo of, maybe I can make another video. But thanks for watching.